Hey everybody, back in 2013, about 4.5 years ago, I published a post on my blog called 5 non-obvious corset accessories that I can't do without, and I realized that I never actually made a video to go along with it. So I'm going to necro that post right now. The first accessory that I want to talk about is a wall-mounted mirror. Now, you definitely don't need a mounted mirror. Before I had one of these, I managed to lace up my corset just by looking behind my back in a regular mirror, like in the bathroom, or just by going by feel. And that worked pretty well, but every so often I might end up with one bunny ear that's a lot longer than the other, or I might have accidentally laced my corset with an uneven gap or the gap twisted in the back because I was looking at myself on an angle. And especially after my car accident in late 2014, I had some neck flare-ups every few months after that, and it was really hard for me to turn my head to be able to look over my shoulder those days. This flexible mount mirror was originally designed so that you could see the back of your head, so if you were styling your hair or even giving yourself a haircut, but it also makes your life much easier when you use it to tighten your corset, because you can see exactly what you're doing without any neck strain. You can adjust the angle to exactly where you need it, and you can use both hands to work on the laces instead of having to hold a mirror with one hand and work the laces with the other. Also, if you notice, when you're looking in just one mirror, a regular mirror, your right hand looks like your reflection's left hand, and this can lead to some confusion. But when you use two mirrors, the image is flipped once again. So your right hand looks like your right hand, making it much easier to judge where to pull and where to make adjustments. The second accessory I want to talk about is extra laces. Now, I know that this isn't exactly a non-obvious corset accessory. Every corset requires laces, but a lot of people think that you only buy extra laces if you want to switch up the color, or if you want to change the texture from like a braided lace to a satin lace or something like that. But I can tell you that I have snapped laces before. It's not impossible, and you don't want to run into Murphy's Law where you're getting ready for a special event and suddenly your laces snap and you need to make a run out for emergency laces. Also, when your laces snap or break, it is really hard to repair that. Like, some people say, oh, you can sew it back together, or you can tie it in a knot, but that knot is really hard to slide through the grommets. And if you are a tight lacer, your laces are under a lot of tension, and you want to make sure that knot is very stable and secure so it doesn't come undone at an inopportune time. And depending on your experience level, if you happen to panic and you can't get out of your corset and you or somebody else cuts you out of your corset, then you're going to need to replace those cut laces anyways. So I highly suggest having a spare set of laces on hand, even if you don't think you're going to be using it anytime soon. Now, there are several places online where you can buy corset laces that are long enough and in any color you want. For instance, Straight Lace Dame has an Etsy shop where you can buy some double-faced satin ribbon laces that she can cut to a custom length for you. Same with Orchard Corset. They have double-faced satin ribbon in several colors and also paracord in several colors. And if you want just like a plain workhorse style flat braided laces, you can get that from Timeless Trends in underbust length and overbust length. But you also don't necessarily have to specifically buy corset laces online, because you can go to a bootmaker's shop, like a cobbler or something. They might have spools of lacing that might fit really long boots, and then you can have it cut to the length that you want. Or you can go to a well-stocked notions or fabric store like Joann's or Fabricland, because they often have different types and styles of laces on a spool that you can get cut to a specific length. The next accessory I want to talk about is regular sponges. Now, you can use memory foam, you can use makeup sponges, you can use these sponges I got from the dollar store, anything you want. You can just rip off this scrubby part right here and just break off pieces if you really want to, and you can cut it to size for the specific task that you want. So I have a couple of corsets where the busk is kind of digging into my solar plexus. So what you can do is you can actually pad out that area so that it's a little bit more squishy and that pressure is better distributed across a wider area. I have seen some corsets that were padded along the solar plexus with a small, specifically made pillow. I believe that was in one of the escarpolette corsets that I had inherited. But you can also just do the same thing with a sponge. And say you have an overbust corset where the bust isn't quite filling out the way that you want it. You can make your own little chicken cutlets or your own pads or fillers. You can just cover this in a piece of cloth or even an old sock where you've lost the partner for it. Sew it into place so that it won't move around. And if the sponge happens to disintegrate over time, then at least it will stay within that fabric or that sock. Also, if your body is asymmetric and say one hip is filling out well, but the other hip isn't filling out quite as well, then you can again put this into a piece of fabric or an old sock and sew it along the hip so that the corset fills out nicely and it doesn't twist on your body. Or say you have a sore spot on your body. Now, the first thing I would say is a well-fitting corset should not make you sore or give you hot spots or pressure points, but say out of some other situation, you have like a little sore spot, but for one reason or another you can't go without your corset, I would pad around that injured area. Not directly on top of it, because that would end up putting more pressure on the area, but just like around the periphery of it, and leave the actual injured area without any sponge. And that way, when the corset is pressing down, it kind of adds extra space between your skin and where the corset is. It just adds like that little pillow of air. Now, if you don't like sponges for whatever reason, there are other things that you can try. Some people have recommended moleskin. I believe Romanticy has said that they had used bubble wrap at some point. So there's lots of soft things and squishy things for you to choose from. Now, this might be a stranger accessory for some of you guys, fingerless gloves for lacing up your corset. I had a pair of driving gloves and then I ended up giving them to a friend a few years ago, but they were so amazing for lacing up. And some of you might have figured out by now, by the fact that my hair and makeup don't change from video to video, that I tend to record a lot of my videos in bulk. So I might be lacing up 4 or 5 or 6 corsets in the same day. And if you are, say, a corset vendor at a fair, like a Renaissance fair or a convention, you'll be lacing up corsets like all day, every day for that weekend. So your hands might get sore, and for me, the place where my hands get the most sore is right in here, because when I'm pulling on those bunny ears, that's where I put the most pressure. But I can't wear full-length gloves because I like to feel the laces with the tips of my fingers, so I need that tactile feedback. So these are just really cheap workout gloves that I actually found at the dollar store, and they are padded along the palm here, but they leave my fingers free. And they're not the prettiest, I openly admit that, but you could probably get some cheaper ones on Amazon or something. These ones, they do their job. Now, the last accessory I had originally mentioned in my written post was wire-free bras, but I've already made several videos about wire-free bras and how they can help prevent underwire entrapment, and they can make it just more comfortable and more compatible to wear a bra with a corset. But since I've already made several videos on that, I'm going to do away with that one and talk about these wine glass rings, or you can even use large beads for crafting and yarn, or even beads for your hair. There are types that just clip on and you don't have to restring the entire corset with the beads in place. So for those of you who get confused which X is which, or sometimes you don't fully grab onto the X but you might grab onto only one side of it, this is great because it can give you like a tactile guide on where to pull. And it just clips on and you can tighten it or loosen it to the amount that you want, and it glides freely as you're lacing up the corset. So it's not going to prevent the laces from sliding through the grommets as you're lacing up or as you're loosening. What color they are is really up to you, but you can use, say, beads on some X's and the wine glass charms on some other X's so that they feel different when you're lacing up. Say if you don't have the mounted mirror and you can't look behind you, then at least you can go by feel. So if you can source a single set that has several different shapes and sizes and textures, that would be best. So that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something new. If you did, please remember to click that like button down there, as it helps support this channel. Subscribe for more tips, and if you have your own tips or hacks or accessories that you might not have associated with corsets but really help you to lace up, feel free to leave a comment down below and share it with us. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on Friday for the next video. Bye.